Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Megan Reuwer. Megan Reuwer is a seasoned entrepreneur. She built and led a large organization of women in sales for almost 10 years. She career transitioned this year to be in alignment with her dreams. She is an author, life coach, authenticity enthusiast, wife, and mama of 4. Multiple of her loves live with special needs, and she always finds ways to weave love, joy, and connection into their world. Her passions include supporting women as they come into their power, health, and wellness, nature, travel, date nights, and great food. Most of all, faith, family, and friendship. Today, we talked about the challenges of being a mom and how you can feel so alone and think you're the only one going through a challenge with your child. We talked about the challenges of being a special needs mom and how important it is to incorporate self-care into your regimen, to put yourself on that list, and that it doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out process. How to add more fun into your life, no matter what you're going through, and how to recognize your strengths and lean into them. And last but not least, how to ask for help and incorporate help and find people that can alleviate some of the extra burdens that you're carrying. What that help could look like, as simple as just asking somebody to do a small task. It doesn't have to be complicated. And just so many great things today surrounding self-care, surrounding help, and not being alone. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I love Megan. She has the sweetest heart. And without further ado, we're going to dive on in. I'm so excited to welcome Megan Reuwer to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I find what you do so interesting. So I really am going to just get the audience getting to know you right off the bat. Tell us what your story is and how you got started into coaching.
So I am a mother of 4 and an entrepreneur. I like to say a serial entrepreneur. And 2 of my children have special needs and 1 is medically complex. And so we kind of made the decision early on to really figure out a business that works for our family so that 2 parents could be home and be present. And obviously I work full time, but I'm still able to really be home with my, and meet the needs, the demands, the doctor's appointments, the specialist appointments, all the things, be present for surgeries and recoveries. So I early on started as a stylist, moved into kind of the direct sales world and built a large organization there. And that's really when I learned I love empowering women and I can really see their strengths. And my brain loves to really come up with ways to use their strengths and programs to just help them find their way forward and implementing those strengths and then just empowering them to get to their dreams and believe their dreams are reachable. So that after being in that space for about 8 years, I decided to get my life coaching certification. I think that's right, because I had a natural skill that I really wanted to continue to hone and have more tools around and language and, all of the extra learning that can really empower you to grow in an area. So after that, it really grew into me working tons with moms, everyone from special needs moms, work from home, just really working on those same challenges we have and the midst of balancing work and family and our passions in the interim, and how to really still take care of ourselves, because that's really a hard piece to fit in when you're doing it all, right?
Yeah, and so I would say all moms have challenges. We all do. We all have things that we think we're the only one. We're the
Yes.
only one going through this. And how are we going to get through it? How are we going to be able to live our dreams when we're having to take all of our energy, focus it on maybe some of our children's challenges, and even more so when you have children that have special needs. But just to speak to everyone today, uh,
Yes.
I think that as moms, we can all have times in our lives where we feel alone, like nobody understands, and like we're just going through this thing. So how can we get more help um, for moms out there going through challenges that feel this way?
Yes, that's so good, Linda. I think really women can internalize so much stress and demand, and we can be so hard on ourselves, like you said, so we can feel really alone. So I love to talk about micro self-care. So inserting 10 minutes a day somewhere in your day to just take a deep breath, move your body. That's such a huge one, moving your body. Um, do something fun. Like I have roller skates, I throw them on for 10 minutes in the heat of Arizona and just get out there. So do something, read a chapter of a book, because often as moms, we feel like there's too many demands to pause for ourselves. And one of the huge pieces of feeling healthy is really knowing yourself and knowing your needs. And if you're just going 24/7 taking care of everyone else's needs, you can't check in with yourself. So finding moments in your day that you can just do that micro care and say, hey, how are you doing today? Like what's weighing on you? And so we used to call it the quarterly meltdown in my house, because I would let stress and all of the things build and build and build and build, and then I'd hit a wall every quarter. And I really started to make some changes about 10 years ago to figure out how do I kind of release the stress valve a little bit every day, and what does that look like for me? And that was the beginning of me really discovering a lot of my own passions and joy. So I love to paint. There's tons of things I love to do. And if I can just tell myself I'm taking 10 minutes instead of this has to be an hour, or, I have to take 45 minutes. It's just a lot less. It's way more conducive to most moms' days. So that's one way. But there's so many other things, but that's one favorite little life hacks.
And we can all have children that aren't cooperating with our vision for the future.
Yes.
The way we envisioned it. And
yes.
Don't you think that that's part of the process, is getting over that and just saying,
yes.
okay, it is what it is, what it looks like. How can we make this work for everybody?
Absolutely. That's nailing it on the head. I think some of the stress we carry as women is what we expect it to look like for our children, instead of just allowing them to be who they are and what they are right in this moment. And that brings so much more peace. But that is a process, right? To let go of what we want, what we expect, and figure out how to embrace who they are.
And it could be letting go of expectations.
Yes.
We might have expectations for our children, and part of the frustration is they're not fitting into those expectations.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes. It is a huge struggle.
Yeah, and I find that could just be not just your children, it could be your relationships, and just realizing to walk into it, not that you shouldn't have some expectations, but sometimes just letting go of expectations
yes.
is freedom.
Yes, absolutely. One of the huge things I talk a lot to moms about is grief, and grief is kind of interwoven in our day. And it's just exactly what you're saying. It's releasing and identifying the expectations we have that aren't being fulfilled in our life, and then going through the process of just letting those go and the peace that will come versus the sadness and the grief. And sometimes sadness leads to peace, right? Like every emotion is just energy. It's not good or bad. And we need to just sometimes clear space to say, oh, I'm grieving that my son didn't, whatever it is, didn't choose the sport I wanted. And it could be huge things and it can be tiny things. But something I learned early on, because two of my children are in wheelchairs, is I have to change what normal is for them in my mind. And otherwise, I will constantly feel sad and heartbroken at what they don't get in life. I want my
Right. Or
children to feel
sorry for,
empowered.
yes, you'll be having pity
Yeah.
parties or feeling sorry for
Yes.
yourself or
Yes.
sorry for them. But let me just say, there really isn't normal. I know that sounds really,
No, absolutely 100% true. And that was my process.
yeah.
Changing, taking that word out of my vocabulary and out of my children's vocabulary. Like that's not, even a typically developing child on the outside could have a lot of other things going on. So we talk a lot about that. And really our biggest goal is just to empower them to be the gifts they are in this world. It
Oh, I
doesn't matter
love
what
that.
you,
That is so good. Say
Yeah.
that again. Say that again for everyone listening.
our goal is to empower them to be the gifts that they are to everyone in this earth,
That right there is worth the whole podcast, I think. All parents just take that tidbit, and that's definitely a tweetable, and just really let that soak in, that we're just here to empower them to be the gifts they are and who they are, and not judge that so much. Like sometimes I think we can be judging of that in all situations, special needs, or maybe you have a genius, like a child that is maybe really great in the academics, but not so much in the social aspects of their life. And there can just be all sorts of different avenues and different challenges, and just realizing that your children are gifts, and that we're just here to we're here for the ride, and to just help them, empower them. But I think just realizing that they're already special gifts to us is very insightful on your part. And now, in the midst of all these demands, all of our children's needs, whether they're special needs or just needs in general, how have you created rhythms in your day for self-care, mental tenacity? Because I think women just feel like they can't cut a break. They can't cut a break. And they are like, are you kidding me? Time for self-care. I would,
Yeah. And that is my story. I felt for years like there was no time and I couldn't possibly create in my life. And, I was chasing goals and there was an income we wanted to get to really provide for our family. And so I didn't know, it always felt overwhelming. And so that's where I kind of did 10 minutes at a time. But then really knowing yourself is a huge piece too, and checking in, like even talking about when we have expectations that are unfulfilled, if we're not aware of them, they really can weigh on us. But if we're aware, whether that's journaling, just saying to yourself, what is that expectation I'm feeling disappointed in? And is it something I can communicate, or is it something I just need to let go? So, this is a side note, but when me and my husband will travel, he'll have different expectations than me. He brings 5 books and I bring 1, and I want to lay by the pool and have a couple drinks, and he wants to read. And I'm like, wait, let's go hiking. Let's go do something. And if we don't communicate that, then we both leave the vacation like that sucked, So anyway, with expectation, but okay, back to how did I implement? So it was bite-sized. It was just one bit at a time. And then it becomes a habit and a ritual. Now I spend at least 30 minutes in the morning, which means sometimes I have to get up earlier just to have a quiet house. And that used to be too hard, when they were younger and not sleeping. Now it's a little more realistic, and I do mantras and meditation, read through. I have a prayer book I love. Sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's just a good walk or a yoga session. So it was just really finding, I think the first step for a mom is thinking of things that you really enjoy and it can quickly fill your cup, that don't take a lot of time. And then being able to shift your mind to, it doesn't have to take a ton of time for me to take care of me. And as time goes, you'll recognize I'm a much better person when I spend the 30 minutes. I'm more patient, I'm more kind, I'm more available. And so then it becomes a necessity versus a want.
And like finding people to help. Like I
Yes.
have an
Oh,
assistant
absolutely.
that helped me today, letting you know I'm running back to back. Instead of
Absolutely.
stressing out, how am I going to get this message to her? Is she going to come in
Yes.
while I'm still on with someone else? It's having people that and asking for help, right?
Yes, that is a huge one. And recognizing where you could use help and support, right? So for a
Yeah.
long time, we paid a woman who just needed like a side job to come and fold our laundry because we have 4 kids and there's a lot of laundry. And I hate the time it took for me. And I have a personal assistant that I adore and can't imagine running my life without. So yes, absolutely. Depending on what's on your plate, finding even the little things that could give you a little more time or space in your day. Yes, that's such a good point.
And don't rule it out. Like, we can be our own worst enemy, saying things like, I'll have to show them how to do what I do. It's going to cost too much money. It's actually going to save you money, and you're going to make more money if you're employed. When you bring someone, the volume of work, it multiplies. So
Yes.
what I find is getting some help is way more help. And
Yes.
the more help you get, the more you realize you need.
Yes, it's so
Yeah.
true.
But like, I think we get in our own way by thinking we have to be superwoman and not asking for any help. And so don't rule out asking for help and finding different ways to incorporate help, and finding someone that could help if you have special needs children, depending on what their needs are. Someone that could come and watch them so you could just get out for an hour for mental clarity. And I just think there's so much. So what tips would you give to support all the listeners out there, that, again, they can't identify what fills their cup because it's so full with so much other stuff?
Yes, yes. Well, I think you just gave an awesome tip, looking at your life and finding where you can get support. And now there's so many ways, like, you can order fresh meals in a box and cut out 30 minutes of dinner time. You can find someone to walk your dog if that just is some part of your day that takes up too much. It doesn't have to necessarily be childcare or house care. It can be all of these things, and you can hire an assistant online who's not committed to you on a weekly basis. You just throw tasks at them. So the convenience of our world makes it really easy once you identify, what could I lift off my plate if I and to your point, like, we used to have structures that were so much more supportive, like your family were your neighbors, and you lived in communities where there was a lot of help and support. We've gotten so individual now that we forget no one can do this alone. No one should do all of this alone. If you're a business owner and you're a mom and you're a wife, there's so much that you really have to take inventory and say, like you said, what can I really pull someone into, take off my plate and give me a little more breathing room? And then from there, you could start to identify.
And
what
it
it is
feels
that
a
fills your
little
cup.
weird at first, but
Yeah,
like, you have to be using,
absolutely.
like, we get in this autopilot of doing of, I've got this client, I've got this podcast, or I've got this child to get to sports. And you're not thinking, you're not
Mhm,
strategizing, you're
mhm.
not sitting down and saying, okay, I feel overwhelmed.
Yep.
Where can I underwhelm myself?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
like the other day, it was just as simple as saying because it's summer and I have a lot of people on vacation, hey, if you don't have anybody for class, do you mind a vacuum? And
Mhm.
well, my instructor went further. She vacuumed and she wiped down the treadmills. And
Yes.
I came in and I was like, oh, felt so good just to walk into a clean studio that it wasn't all on me all the time, every single day. And I need to hire. And so I wrote in my notes, hire someone to clean studio every week. But and then still, will you guys vacuum and wipe something off if you don't have anybody at that, if it's like a slow night and
Yes.
you have no
Yes.
one for class. It's just finding those things that you could change the way that it's all happening. And that caused a whole avalanche of ideas and me writing things down. How can I work myself out of a job? Like,
Right.
because as a business owner, you want people in there. And
Yes.
as a mom, how can you work yourself out of all the work? Like, just
Yes.
really thinking about that, and just don't rule it out, write it out. And sometimes it's hard to ask for help. It feels
Oh,
weird.
yes. Oh, yes. When I was first building my business and it started to grow and I started to feel all of this internal stress about what I wasn't doing and the expectations, this is another great activity, thinking about the expectations you have of yourself as a mom. Like, what does a great mom look like to you? So mine meant a home cooked meal every night, warm breakfast, laundry folded and put away. That never happened. But I had all these expectations and I found myself failing at them all the time. But what I wasn't doing was saying, are these realistic for our life? Do they matter? Like, what really matters when you're a mom? What really matters to me is connection and quality time and doing things we love together. If my house is chaotic, I need to either make the choice to pay someone for that or decide how much it stresses me. It doesn't really stress me. I can live in chaos. I only have little kids for a while. So it's kind of really looking at what are you expecting of yourself and how can you change those expectations to align with what you value as a parent. So if you really value creating things together, do more of that and less of the stress around cleaning or cooking. Or if you really love cooking, figure out how to clear something off your plate to do more of that. Because that is just back to that point of filling your cup within a role you already have to do. So it's really getting to the nitty gritty of like you said, how do I work myself out of something I don't enjoy? And you said it's so hard, and the belief around I don't have enough money, or I can't afford that, or I don't want to pay someone to clean my house because I don't trust them to do it the way I want it done.
Oh my
Me and
gosh,
Linda,
there's so much of that. So much of that.
yeah, me and Linda will tell you right now, if you're listening, do it a couple times and all of those beliefs will fall off of you. And you'll be
You're like,
like,
oh, they did
oh
it
my
better than I did.
gosh. Yes. Or I don't even care that they did it because it's done. And now it's off my plate, But truly, when I had to hire my first assistant, I was so anxious about like how we were going to afford it. But it's exactly your point. What it allowed for me to get done as she was do the things I love. And when you get to do the things you love, you're so much more fulfilled in life. So I got to focus on my customers and my team and my leaders, and I didn't have to worry about all these little logistics. And she took all those on as it cleared. I got to focus on relationships, and that's what I love. So it's so worth it. And if I can, yes, there's so many ways you can clear out some of those tasks that end up stressing you. And like you said, you're just moving from thing to thing to thing, and you don't have time to think about what your needs are.
And I think success means different things to different people.
Yes,
And like,
absolutely.
you could find yourself in, how you had the expectations of the warm food, the folded laundry, all the things. I was in the land of, I have a top podcast. I have a gym. I still like to do fitness competitions. And
Yes.
I have all these things buzzing around in my brain about, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but
Yes.
but then you sit down and you're like, well, where's all that going to fit in to the whole scheme of everything? And then you have to sit down and be like, okay, especially if you're an overachiever, clarity, morning, coffee or tea, whatever it is you do, and just breathe and just be and think, I'm enough as I am right now.
Yes.
What do I really want? And instead of what we think we need to be doing and this and that, because it sure cuts away a lot of the pressure, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the things we don't even want to be doing.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, you nailed it. That clarity is why 30 minutes in the morning is so important to me, because it is really about sitting with yourself and saying, what do I want today? I had listened to this great podcast the other day that was about chasing the emotions you want. Like a competition for you. Maybe that's what you chose. Like, I want to get ready for this competition. What you're chasing there is like the joy, the experience, all these emotions that come with that.
Right.
And
I'm chasing the body.
Yes, exactly. And it shifted something so good in me where I was like, what am I chasing today? I'm chasing joy, and I'm chasing peace, and I'm chasing ecstasy and passion. Those are the things I want to experience more of in my life,
Okay, so I like that, because you basically just said that of what it wasn't what you're chasing, it's what you wanted to feel, and that's what you were getting, you thought, from those experiences. So if you could bring in more of what you want to feel and recognize what that is, you might not have to chase everything.
Exactly. And you can bring more of that into your day. So like joy for me can look like a little coffee treat in the middle of the day, or picking up a new shirt at TJ Maxx, or connecting with a good friend. So it's kind of, once you know the emotions you really want more of in your life, then you can really, like you said, clarify what direction you want to go in to find more of that, And I think whenever we're thinking positively, we find more of it anyway in our day, right? Like, we find more joy in the little things if we're thinking about having more joy. So yeah, it was just a really great, the way it was said was so great and registered so deep with me of like, yes, that's how I'm going to live my life.
So I think that right there was key for anybody with special needs, children too, is you may not feel like you're having any fun. I mean, you may feel like you're bogged down with all of the, with work, with that, with the extra, and finding what is fun. Does fun have to be complicated, or can it be something easy? Like, fun for me was going to lunch with my friend. It could be so many different things, but realizing that fun is not canceled. You just have to figure out how you can find it in a new way.
Yes, I love that. Fun is not canceled. Yeah, for me, that's like a dance party in my office. I'll find it. Laughter is so important for me. So like, how do I introduce more of that in my day? And it can be little things, So yes, it's not canceled. I love that. That's quotable.
Now, you do a lot of coaching, so that leads me to believe you've done the work yourself, because you have to have done that to be able to help other people. How do you help others to identify their strengths? Because I think so many of us don't even know what our strengths are. And 100%. How do we identify the strengths that we have and lean into them?
That's so great. So usually in my coaching practice, I kind of take them through a series of identifying their values, because a lot of times your values will point to what's out of balance and also where your strengths lie. So, but if you're doing it for yourself and you want to know your strengths, my top tip, I just said this the other day on another podcast, was ask your 3 to 5 closest friends or family members what are 3 to 5 things they love about you, and take that information and look at it. And I always have to say, what you identify with is what your strengths are. Because some people will look at a list and be like, I don't see that. But the other ones will be like, that is true. I always do show up. I am really caring. I am a great listener. So that's one activity I always give. I make my clients overall call people, because I think the power of giving them time to think and connect and ask those questions is really a powerful, it just sits deeper with you. So I had to do that activity actually in coaching school, and I left every phone call crying, but it was true. Everything they said were my strengths, and it was really powerful for me because it was giving myself the opportunity to see me through their eyes. And then you're like, okay, that's what I add to their life. That's the value I add to them. So I want to keep adding that in this life and lean into that and develop those. And that leads you down, to me, that led me down a long journey. I'd already been doing a lot of work around self-discovery, but really a long journey of like, how do I develop the strength of communication? How do I develop the strength of curiosity? And kind of growing it more as my superpowers, I like to. So yeah, that's an activity.
That's a great exercise. And you almost can feel awkward not wanting to do it and asking people about yourself. Like, what do you think about me? I asked, and it was so good though. I asked my clients, what did the Sisterhood of Sweat mean to them? What did they see it as, and they wrote, I mean, it was an outpouring of so many great things, of love, of what they saw it as, and then I put it on my website, and it brings me customers to this day, just people reading what people thought about the Sisterhood of Sweat. And it meant so much to me because it was everything I was trying to create. And when my customer told me that I was actually doing and achieving that, that is something that is a gift. Like, you wouldn't even realize that if you didn't ask. You would never know.
Yes. And it's powerful to know the impact you're having, and that you naturally, because of like the strength of who you are, you naturally created what you had in your heart to create. And now people get to experience it the way you thought they would. And that's just amazing and powerful to be like, oh, that's my work. I did it, and what's next? And how do I keep it going? How do I keep attracting the right people to keep this culture and this sisterhood going,
Oh yeah, it made me want to cry for sure.
Oh yeah,
to realize that you're actually creating what you had intention to create. Yes. When it was just a vision, when it was just something you were thinking, and each time, excuse me, got a little frog in my throat. Each time that I protected my vision, because sometimes you had to even do that, by clarifying what that was and what I would and wouldn't allow. It strengthened my vision. It strengthened what I was about. And I think that exercise is just very, very powerful in all ways.
Yes. And I always say, I give you permission to say, my life coach made me ask you these questions. I'm working, you can say, one of my favorite podcasters told me to ask these questions. It makes people feel a little less vulnerable.
Oh my gosh, because it is total vulnerability.
It's 100% vulnerability, but there's beauty in that.
Yeah, there is beauty in that. And it also gives the people something when they're answering you. It makes them re-establish what they're getting or what you are to them. So it's really a cool gift. One. What led you into being an entrepreneur?
Mainly our children. Also, I The funny thing is, I think I always had a really hard work ethic, and I enjoyed working. I really enjoy working with people. So then I was a hairstylist at first, and I didn't want to work for someone. So I worked for myself. And I, at that point, was so young, I didn't realize I was entrepreneuring it. And kind of grew into what's my next dream and what do I really love and how do I hone that and continue to build on that to serve and empower people. So it also is really to fit our family's long-term needs. You know, we need a different type of house than most because we have wheelchairs, and we need to save for them because they may not have typical jobs in typical spaces that they can do. So for me, my huge motivator is I want to live fully in my power to empower others. And I really want to give my kids a long lasting future. So entrepreneur, and I want to be present while they're still here, you know, because I think sometimes we can work so hard to give them a future, but miss out on the present. And so I wanted all of those things. And the only way to do that is entrepreneurship, in my opinion, like, because you get to choose your schedule, you get to choose what it looks like. So, and what you give to it. And like you said, and you get to re-clarify it, right? So initially I didn't have an assistant, but then I said, I want more time with my kids. I want Fridays to be a free day. You know, how do I do that? Oh, I pass more things to my assistant, or I get an assistant. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's
I love that you
entrepreneurship for
said
me.
that about intention. I just want to
Yes.
bring that in again. I was intentional. I set my intentions with what I
Yes.
wanted to see. And I think that it's like if I order a salad with pumpkin seeds and chicken and salmon, I'm probably going to get a salad with pumpkin, you know, chicken,
Yep.
all that pumpkin seeds, all the, if you're not intentional, it's not going to show up for you. So I think being intentional about your life is key, and having a vision of what you want to see, even in the worst of circumstances. I hate that we're running out of time today. So my last, I'm back to back. My last question I want to ask is, what would you like to say to all women out there right now that have special needs children and they feel like the challenges are overwhelming?
I would say you're powerful. You're doing a great job. The things our children need the most is love and tenderness, and you're doing it, Mama. You're doing it.
So good. So good. I have so enjoyed you today. Where can everyone reach you on social media and get more
I
of you?
am meganrosecoaching.com, at Sparkle Shine on Instagram, and Megan Maloney Reuwer on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, make sure you guys to reach out to her, let her know how much you enjoyed the episode, give her a follow. And as always, keep on keeping on, everyone.
Thank you, Linda.